Our topic today is faith and reason. This is a broad. The one that interests us in this discussion is the relation between science and religious belief. Religious belief, of course, is an aspect of faith, and science is a manifestation of reason. In fact, some would say that science is the most important achievement of reason in human history. Before turning directly to the relation between religion and science, however, let's look at the general question of how we come to know. This is a good place to start. The nature of knowledge has always been an essential part of philosophy, and in modern philosophy it's become the most important question of all. According to influential thinkers such as René Descartes and Immanuel Kant, we don't have the right to claim that something is true unless we can adequately account for the way we came to know or believe it. The question, in other words, is not just what do we know, it's how do we know what we know. Now, when it comes to human knowledge, God has given us two great gifts, both of which are important in our quest for truth. One is the ability to doubt, and the other is the ability to trust. Without the ability to doubt, we would be completely gullible. We would believe anything anybody said. We would be easily fooled. Much worse, we would put ourselves in great danger. We wouldn't be able to tell good ideas from bad ones. We wouldn't know a right decision from a wrong one. In short, we would be incapable of rational investigation. The ability to doubt is very important. Although in the eyes of many people, doubt is the most prominent feature in human knowing, it is not the only one. Trust is important too. To know things, you also have to have trust. Sometimes we place our trust in other people. We depend on what they tell us is true. Sometimes we trust ourselves. We trust our senses to tell us about the world. We also trust the operation of our minds. Paradoxically, it seems, we even trust when we doubt. We trust the importance of doubt. We trust our minds to raise the right doubts and to answer these doubts in a helpful way. We also trust ourselves to realize when we've doubted enough and come to the place where we can affirm something. So without trust, we would never come to knowledge. So trust and doubt represent two facets of human knowing. They also represent two responsibilities. We have the duty to avoid error. Doubt is essential for that. We also have the responsibility to embrace truth. Trust is important for that. The challenge, of course, is to fulfill both of these responsibilities. If we only had to avoid error, we could simply doubt everything, and we'd never make a mistake. But that would paralyze us. On the other hand, if all we had to do was embrace truth, we would tend to believe everything. But in that case, we would make all kinds of mistakes. The big question is how to balance the two, how to bring them together in a way that allows each one the right role in our knowing. It's possible to overdo trust, of course, but it's just as possible to overdo doubt. One gift seems to be more prominent than the other at certain stages of life. Children are notoriously trusting. They're inclined to believe anything you tell them. Adolescents are notoriously skeptical. They're inclined to reject anything you tell them. There was a time when people said we should never trust anyone older than 30. Of course, the people who said that are now in their 60s. Now, one of these gifts that we're talking about, trust and doubt, is more prominent than the other at certain times in history. Historians sometimes speak of the Middle Ages as the age of faith. With few exceptions, for about 1,000 years in the Western world, everyone held a religious and predominantly Christian view of things, and they got their beliefs from accepted authorities. From the Enlightenment onward, however, everything changed, and the prevalent attitude of people in the Western world became one of doubt. An intellectually responsible person today is instinctively skeptical. He or she doesn't accept any claims unless they can overcome objections and reservations. So in the world we live in, the supreme accomplishment of human reason is modern science, a marvelous combination of careful reflection and careful observation. Scientists formulate theories, and they develop experiments to test these theories. Before any theory can be accepted, it has to square with the facts, and that typically means overcoming objections. So the way of science, in many ways, is the way of doubt. Now, we all benefit from science, and none of us would choose to live in a pre-scientific age. We can't go back, and what's more, we wouldn't want to go back. Somebody said the past is a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there. I love history, and occasionally I fantasize about living in some distant time and place. Wouldn't it be wonderful to walk the streets of Athens with Socrates and Plato, or ride into battle with Julius Caesar, or sail the seas with Columbus or Magellan, or listen to Martin Luther defend his understanding of the gospel? But I'm always caught up short with a question like this: how would you like to go to the dentist in the 5th century BC, or the 1500s, or the 1800s, or even the 1950s? Now, when faced with a question like that, I rush to embrace the good fortune that I live in a time and place where we enjoy the benefits of modern science. Science has increased our understanding of the world, in fact, of the universe, and it's prolonged our lives. It's an enormous blessing, and we should be grateful for it. But so effective is science, and so impressive and beneficial are its consequences, that many people give science the last word on everything. Unless something makes sense in scientific terms, unless there is what many people would call empirical or scientific evidence to support it, we have no business believing it. An intellectually responsible person, in the thinking of many people today, is someone who bases his or her beliefs on the results of scientific inquiry. Now, people who hold such a strong view of science are typically skeptical when it comes to religion, because religion makes claims, or certainly seems to make claims, for which scientific evidence is lacking. As they see it, we have to make a choice between science and religion, between reason and faith, and there is no question as to what the choice should be. If we're thoughtful people, if we live in the modern world, we have to go with science. We have to base our beliefs on reason, and reason alone. Now, I want to argue now that we do not have to choose between religion and science in spite of this widespread attitude. It is perfectly possible to be religiously committed and intellectually responsible. No one has to choose between faith and reason. Both are important, and both have a place in the life of the believer. To start with, let's try to clear up some misunderstandings about the relation between religion and science. Here's one. Religion is irrational. Science is rational. Now, this is the way that many people like to look at it. To quote one recent author, there is a profound difference between science and religion in its conception of truth. Science requires an open mind, free inquiry, critical thinking, the willingness to question assumptions, and peer review. The test of a theory or hypothesis is independent of bias, prejudice, faith, or tradition, and it is justified by the evidence, logical consistency, and mathematical coherence. And of course, this author by implication is saying religion is none of those things. It's the direct opposite. It consists of accepting ideas without adequate evidence, believing things that go way beyond the facts, and accepting authority blindly. Is that really the important difference between science and religion? Just to soften that distinction a bit, I think we should note that scientists, too, are capable of unwarranted beliefs. If religious people believe more than the evidence